Question number one. A lot of people are under the impression that you're killing off the Phoenix viewer. Is this correct?
No. In a simple answer, no. And I've seen 1,000 people 1,000 times think that we're killing Phoenix. We are not killing Phoenix. In fact, it's the opposite. We gave you our word. I gave you my word that we would keep the Phoenix viewer alive as long as it's feasibly possible. It isn't us that's killing Phoenix, and it isn't us that is killing viewer 1. It is Linden Lab. So I can't make that any simpler than that. No, we're not killing Phoenix. Linden Lab is killing Phoenix, and there's nothing we can do to stop that. We have promised we will keep Phoenix going as long as it's feasibly possible, and we will continue to do so. And the most recent release of Phoenix with Mesh, and then an emergency update because we had some important bugs, should be a pretty good indicator that we plan to keep it going on a limited basis. We're not going to be developing it full-time like we are in Firestorm. I hope that answers that question clearly.
Okay, how do you know Linden Lab's going to kill off viewer 1?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. So, we have these bi-weekly meetings with Linden Lab, not just us. All third-party viewers that are on the third-party viewer directory are invited by Linden Lab to have a meeting with them every second Friday. It was during a number of these meetings that Linden Lab, Linden specifically, indicated to us in an unofficial way that it is Linden Lab's intention to basically deprecate V1 features. They'll be turning off server-side functionality that V1 viewers require. They'll be adding new features that will be very difficult, if not impossible, to port into V1 viewers. And so basically it's an inevitability. Now, Linden Lab has not made any official announcements about doing this, which puts me in an awkward position because, well, there's nobody saying, I'm the only person, we're the only people really saying that Linden Lab is going to kill V1 viewers. The reason we know that they're going to kill V1 viewers is because they've told us this. And they've told us this, the purpose of having these meetings with Linden Lab, and Linden Lab having these meetings with us is communication, so that Linden Lab can communicate things that are coming downstream from them in the future, and so that we can communicate to them things that we're working on that may affect them. And so this was one of the things that they let us know about. Unfortunately, during that meeting, most of the third-party viewers don't actually show up at these meetings. We think that they're actually pretty important. We've worked very hard to try to open a line of communication with Linden Lab, and they've worked for the same thing, and to try to get cooperation. So we try to go out of our way to make sure that we're at these meetings. I don't remember if any of the other third-party viewers were at that particular meeting. But I know that it was spoken in an unofficial way, not as a Linden announcement, but as a, oh, by the way, we just want to give you a heads up that this is what's coming. This is what's happening in the future. At the time, we were told that it would probably be within, before the end of the year, and that's not happened yet. But I know that it is inevitable that Linden Lab will be killing V1 viewers, one way or the other.
Okay. And you're absolutely sure that they're going to kill viewer 1 after all, you know, a lot of people are on it. I mean, wouldn't that just like completely cut all of Second Life? You know, wouldn't just a bunch of people just leave?
Well, it's a matter of economics. A lot of people have said, okay, Linden Lab has said that they're going to kill viewer 1, but they can't afford to because there's so many people on viewer 1. And that's a very good point. There is a lot of people on Phoenix and on other V1 viewers, third-party viewers, and you know, killing off V1 or breaking V1 is going to cause a big loss of users. Potentially, unless they have something they can fall back on that they want to use, like a V2 viewer that's not going to get hurt, that is usable for them. But it's a matter of economics. I come from a business background. I have a master's degree in business, and I've managed businesses for my employers as well as I run my own business. It's a matter of economics. Okay, Linden Lab right now can't afford to kill viewer one, but they also can't afford not to kill viewer one. Let me explain. Mesh is a perfect example. Linden Lab, think of it this way. Consider you're the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company with a very large overhead every month you have to pay out. And you decide that you're going to invest $100,000, $200,000, or $300,000 into a new feature. So before you can just say, let's just do this feature, you have to work out when are you going to start seeing a return on that investment? How long is that going to take? You have to try to do a little bit of math and a little bit of budgeting around that. So Linden Lab invests, a couple $100,000 on Mesh. Let's use Mesh as the example here. And then Linden Lab releases Mesh, but Mesh doesn't get adopted. It doesn't get adopted because it takes a very long time for V1 viewers to get it into their viewer. And it takes a long time for all the third-party viewers, for that matter, to get it into their viewer. It takes a lot longer for viewer 1, though, than for third-party viewers that are based on V2, because V2-based third-party viewers can just merge that work. Boom, done. V1 viewers have to try to make it work. They have to try to take a whole lot of code out of viewer 2 or viewer 3 and squeeze it into their V1 viewer. I knew the phone was going to ring today. Squeeze it into the V1 viewer and try to make it work, and that takes time. So let's look at how Mesh worked out for Linden Lab. And I won't go into details about how Mesh is not working as well as it should be. Let's just look at the economics of it. So they invest $100,000, $200,000 into this new feature, and they release it. And it has taken, 5 months? 5 months before the Phoenix release went out with Mesh. And it's gone out, but it's still not working properly because Mesh doesn't work very well in V1 viewers. In any V1 viewer, I don't care what third-party viewer with V1 has Mesh, it has bugs. So that's 5 or 6 months that they've made no return whatsoever on that new feature. And beyond that, it's compounded because now... So let's say that they didn't have to depend on third-party viewers to pick up this feature. They release it, and it's a big excitement. Everybody goes and gets it. Everybody at the store starts selling it, and everybody's excited about it. There's a momentum there. Once you get the momentum going, then you're going to start seeing some profits. The momentum is lost now because it took so long for third-party viewers to get that feature out. So Linden Lab has, at this point, lost money on Mesh. And you may ask, well, how is Linden Lab going to make money on a feature like Mesh? How does Linden Lab make any money? Mesh uploads, for example, as a Mesh creator, costs money. Mesh uses up region resources. The more heavy it is prim-wise, the more prim equivalent it is. And so they end up selling more land because as a landowner or as a region owner, as you add more Mesh, you end up needing more land for the prims that the Mesh uses. Mesh boosts the economy and gets stores selling Mesh items and Mesh content. And so the economy gets boosted. You've got residents buying it. You've got residents selling it. So there's a lot of profit there in just one feature. And Linden Lab is a profitable business, or they have to be profitable to remain in business. So it's a matter of economics. Can you imagine running your own company where you have to depend, you can invest thousands and thousands of dollars on something, but you can't make any return unless and only if your competitors actually pick up that new feature? Can you imagine running a business like that? So the reality is, economically, Linden Lab can't afford not to kill viewer 1. I hope that makes sense. So it's a reality that V1 is a thorn in Linden Lab's side right now, on one hand, economically, and on another hand, it's very difficult and puts them in an awkward position to try to deprecate viewer 1 because there's so many people still on it. And the longer people are on the V1 viewer, the longer they're not going to make profits from anything that they actively develop.
Okay. Now, if that's true, why aren't you taking all of the work that you're doing in Firestorm and putting it into Phoenix Viewer? until it no longer works. I mean, you're using more time on Firestorm than you are Phoenix. Why is that?
Let me offer you a metaphor. And this actually came to me the other night, and I used it in another conversation. I'm going to use it again here because it actually is a pretty accurate metaphor, and it might help. Because so we're getting criticized heavily because we've removed our focus from the Phoenix viewer, and we've put that focus towards Firestorm viewer. And a lot of people feel that we're giving up on Phoenix. Let me offer you a metaphor. You have a house, and you've built that house, and you've spent a long time building it, and you've wallpapered it, and you've painted it, and you've done the floors, and you love this house. It's your house, and it's home. Okay, it's what you're comfortable with. It's what you like, and you don't want to change. The government comes along and says that we're building a highway, and we're going to demolish your house. Now, you know that in this metaphor, you know that you cannot stop that. The government is going to tear down this house. There's no two ways around it. There's nothing you can do to stop them. It's an inevitable. You just don't know exactly when, but you know it'll be soon, but you don't know when. So I ask you, knowing this, do you, A, start building a new home, or do a kitchen renovation? Now, if you chose to do a kitchen renovation in this house that's about to be destroyed, when it gets destroyed, you won't have a new home to start with. So you'll have to be living homeless while you try to build a new home. Or you can live in your home while it's still, in one piece, and build your new home so that when your favorite home gets demolished, you've got a new home to move into. Does that make sense? So the old home that you're comfortable with, that's Phoenix viewer. And everybody likes Phoenix viewer. Most everybody loves the Phoenix viewer. It is comfortable. It is familiar. But what we're trying to do is build you a new home before the Phoenix home gets destroyed. Now, if the Phoenix home gets destroyed before Firestorm home or the Firestorm house is ready for you to move in, if the new house is something you hate, you can't stand it, it's ugly and it's not painted yet and the roof leaks and all these things, then we have failed you. The idea here is to get Firestorm to a state where you want to use it so that when the Phoenix home gets pulled and torn down by the government, being Linden Lab, you'll have something that you'll be comfortable moving into. Do you understand? So there's not much point in doing a kitchen renovation in the Phoenix viewer because it's going to be torn down anyways. So we can either spend time on a viewer that's about to get destroyed, and then when it's gone, you guys got nothing. You'll have two choices. You will have the Linden viewer or quit Second Life. And I don't think quitting Second Life is a good alternative. It's not acceptable to me. If you have to quit Second Life, then we have not done our job, and we have failed you. If Firestorm is not ready to the point where you're willing to use Firestorm instead of quitting Second Life, then we have failed you. So our priority is to get Firestorm to a state where it is featureful enough for that it has the features that you want, that it is stable like Phoenix is, that it is as bug-free as we can possibly make it, and that it is familiar or at least easy enough for you to learn how to use. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we've removed focus from Phoenix. Now, we're not quitting Phoenix. We made a promise, and we said that we would keep Phoenix alive as long as it is feasibly possible. But we're going to do that with as little effort as we can possibly put, okay? Because we want to put all our effort into building you this new home. So Phoenix will get updates periodically when it needs them. If Linden Lab changes something that breaks it, like there's things coming that's going to break Viewer 1, and that'll have to be fixed, and we'll fix it. As long as we can fix it without putting too much time into it, we're going to fix it, and we're going to give you another Phoenix update. But there's going to be a lot more work going into Firestorm. I hope that makes sense. I hate that people are angry at us for removing our focus off of Phoenix, but the reality is it really is a dying viewer, and it would be a failure on our behalf if we removed or if we kept our focus on Phoenix and didn't focus on building you a new house to go to when Phoenix dies.
Okay. I'm going to run over the rules here real quick. Remember, people, G-rated sim, no cussing. If you can't say it in front of your grandmother, a priest, or in the middle of Disneyland with Mickey staring straight at you, then don't do it here. All right? Anybody who wants a question answered, I am me. If you ask it in local, I'm not looking at local. I'm looking at the IMs. I'm paying attention to what Jessica's saying, and I'm getting questions ready. I'm lining them up. So if you're not asking them in IM, I'm not going to ask them, and you most likely won't get them answered. Okay?
I just want to address Queen saying that if a customer wants Phoenix, what's the problem? Again, the problem is if you want us to focus on Phoenix, we'll focus on Phoenix for you, okay, Queen? And when Phoenix is dead, you will have one alternative, and that is the Linden Viewer. Would you rather have a better alternative to the Linden Viewer, or just have Phoenix for another month or two? The bottom line is that we do what we do. I do what I do because I want to try to improve your experience. I have no control over uh, Linden Lab killing Viewer 1 and Phoenix, or deprecating Viewer 1 and Phoenix. In fact, if I had my way, we wouldn't have this problem at all. In fact, we wouldn't even be having this discussion because Phoenix has a bright future. We've spent together as a team, we've spent thousands and thousands of hours working on Phoenix and getting Phoenix to a point where it is the most stable viewer in Second Life next to the Linden Lab 1.23, which has nothing, no features. And we're very proud of what we've accomplished with Phoenix. And certainly we wouldn't spend that much time on something and then want to throw it away, right? It's just logical. Why would we want to give that up? Why would we put all that work into it and then just let it go? Because we don't have a choice. Okay, we're letting it go because we don't have a choice. It's not our decision. Second Life is not our platform, and we don't have control over it. And we know that economically, Linden Lab can't afford to keep V1 viewers going forever. And so it only makes sense to improve the experience by working on providing you an alternative viewer besides the Linden viewer for when V1 is dead. And if we can't keep our focus on Firestorm and get it to that point where it's an acceptable alternative to you, then we've failed you. And when Phoenix dies and V1 dies, you will have no other choice but to use a Firestorm that is not ready for you, a Firestorm that you don't like, or Linden Lab viewer.
Okay. Just for a second here, I'm going to break away from some of the questions here, and I'm going to ask my own question. And I'm sorry for being selfish of everybody. Jessica, how much have you gotten paid being a Firestorm Phoenix person?
Exactly zero. That's actually how much all of us have made, and I do make
Okay.
a joke sometimes to some of our devs, and I'm going to give you a raise, a double of what I'm already paying you, which will be nothing.
Double your pay.
Exactly. You get a raise, which means nothing.
Okay.
People don't understand. I think some people don't understand. We do this because we enjoy doing it, okay? We enjoy doing it because we enjoy seeing our users happy. It's that I think pretty much all of us can agree that the main reason we do this is because we love to see happy people. We get our statistics from Linden Lab every week that tell us how many people are on our viewers and how many hours are being spent on our viewers. And I don't look at that as something to brag about. I use that as a dial of how well we're doing. And if we're losing people, then we're doing something wrong. And if we're gaining people, then we're doing something right. We've only always been gaining. Firestorm is gaining astronomically right now. So I think we're doing something right. But what takes the enjoyment out of what we do is all the angry people who are angry at us for taking the focus away from Phoenix, when the reality is we don't have a choice. There's no sense in working on it when Linden Lab is going to kill it anyways.
So basically, what you're saying is that it's a old-fashioned lead fuel car, and everybody's going over to unleaded, and you can only modify it so much to comply with current fuel standards before you just have to leave it in the barn.
Yeah, it's not up to us, and we're getting yelled at and flamed on a regular basis. But it's not up to us. And what's happening is, and we listen to you, okay? I've seen so many times lately people saying that, we don't listen to our users. We would not be here if we didn't listen to you. And in fact, that is the main thing we do, is to listen to you. And we know Firestorm isn't ready for all of you. Okay, I may like Firestorm. We have a lot of people here who love Firestorm and swear by it. We also have a lot of Phoenix users who have tried Firestorm and don't like it yet. And I say yet because, folks, we're not done. We've only just begun. And we've adopted a V2 viewer now that we're trying to make V1-ish. We're trying to make it look like Viewer 1 for you, but that's not easy to do. A lot of people have asked, why have we changed the Firestorm interface, or changed the interface in the Firestorm viewer to look something different than Phoenix when everybody wants the Phoenix UI? That actually is the opposite of truth. We adopted the V2 viewer, so we have taken the V2 viewer and made it look as much as we can like Phoenix, like Viewer 1. And believe me, that is no small task. That has been the majority of our development time in the last, or at least the beginning 4 or 5 months of working on Firestorm. And even right up until our latest release, it's been a significant part of our commitment time-wise on Firestorm, is just trying to get it looking to a point that you can enjoy using it and learn it easier. We realize that it is not Viewer 1. And the UI, we will never be able to make it look exactly like Phoenix. That's just a reality. There's some things we can do, and there's some things we can't do. But we can try our damned hardest to make it look as close to V1 as we can, or at least give you an option that looks as close to V1 as we can. And that's what we're doing with Firestorm. We've given you the Phoenix login option. We've given you the Viewer 2 login option. We've given you a hybrid login option, and now we're looking at importing Linden Lab's new interface design that they've put out, which we like. Actually, they've done a good job. Kudos to Linden Lab for that. And that's going to be a big task alone, because that work undoes almost everything that we've done in the UI, which is half of our commitment time on Firestorm. So it would have been nice if we had known that Linden Lab was working on this ahead of time, because it would have saved us from quite a bit of work that's now being wasted. But the reality is Firestorm's not done. Okay, so if you don't like Firestorm and you hate Firestorm, I'm not saying. And here's another thing: a lot of people are saying, your team are telling people that they have to use Firestorm. No, we're not. We're asking you to try it. Okay, the house is half built, and we're asking you to leave the Phoenix house for a couple days or a day or a couple hours and come visit the Firestorm house. Spend an hour in the Firestorm house, look around, get a feel for the place, because at some point you're going to have two options, okay? This is not up to us. You are going to have two options. You're going to have the option of Firestorm, or you're going to have the option of the Linden Lab V2 viewer. There are a couple other third-party viewers out there, but they're not well developed, and so you may have them as well. But basically, you're going to have an option of a V2 viewer. That's the reality of it, and that's not our decision. That's not our control. We don't have any power or say in that.
Okay. Now we'll get to some of those questions that were on the blog.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions on the blog, and then we're going to get to your questions from the audience. If you guys are all talking in local chat and asking your questions in local chat, they're not going to get answered. You have to send them to Nigma, and then he will ask me. And I've put aside the rest of the day, and Rockcliffe is giving us this location for as long as we need it, and we'll go through until all the questions are answered.
And I'll even sit here and help. Okay, number one question was from Green Man. He says, will this be any more or less effective than the blog argument that we have that have gone on these last couple of weeks? Because there's no real point to this if you're if you and your teammates are just going to do the same round of insults, dismissals, and elitism you have been engaging in. Elitism. Wow.
Really? So, if Green Man is here, I hope you are here. I would like to know, when did we insult the users? Are we insulting you? Have I insulted you? I've always tried to stay to the point and factual with all of the blog posts that go out on the Phoenix Viewer website, and we have remained factual. Now, some people who believe Viewer 1 will never get killed off think that we're insulting their intelligence because we're saying that it will. I've explained the reasoning why Viewer 1 is going to get killed off. It is a matter of economics. Either Viewer 1 goes or Second Life goes. If Linden Lab can't remain profitable, there will be no Second Life, right? Now, so there's the insults, dismissals. I'm not dismissing anything you guys are saying. I see Queen wants us to remain on working on Phoenix. I'm not dismissing that. I understand that, and I understand that you want us to keep going on Phoenix. I'm not dismissing it. I'm acknowledging it. But what I am saying is that it doesn't make sense to do that. For us to help you, if we remain working on Phoenix, we're not helping you. Okay? To help you, we have to provide and have ready for you an alternative to Phoenix and Viewer 1 and when it goes. Otherwise, we've not done our job. Elitism, really? I'm not even sure if I know what that means, and I don't know if anybody can point out, and I won't get mad at you for calling us elitists or calling me an elitist. Oh, what is that supposed to mean? And how are we being elitists? I guess I'll leave that question.
Another term for Canadian? I don't know. Okay. Narelle Mooncat has actually two questions here. Question number one. On the newest Phoenix release, the ultra settings minus shadows, at my home, I can get over 40 FPS, sometimes pushing 60 FPS. Wow, that's bloody fast. On Firestorm, I was lucky to hit 25 with settings that were less than ultra and still no shadows. So my question to you would be, are there any plans to address the performance of future viewers so that they are closer to what is being achieved in Phoenix?
I'm glad that question was asked. We've had a lot of complaints about performance on Firestorm, and we're getting complaints about performance on Phoenix with Mesh as well. Here's the thing. Mesh is not perfect. That's an understatement. There's all kinds of bugs that came in with Mesh, and there's a lot of graphic issues. There's a lot of graphics card specific problems that come with Mesh, and we didn't create them. Okay, Linden Lab gets credit for the Mesh, and Linden Lab gets credit for the bugs that came with it. All we did is pulled it into our viewer. So Linden Lab is aware that Mesh has a performance hit. We're obviously aware that Mesh has a performance hit all across the board. Okay, some people are hit with it a lot harder than others. The people that are hit with it harder than others are folks who are having graphic-specific problems. So there's a lot of bugs that affect specific graphic cards, and we don't have a list of what cards are affected by what. We just know that some people use Firestorm official release with Mesh, and it's fantastic, and other people use it, and it's absolutely horrible. So a lot of these problems lie in the render pipeline code, and I know that's a little bit Greek to most people. What it is this huge chunk of code in the viewer that deals with rendering and how rendering happens and how the viewer handles rendering. And let me just tell you, that code is complicated as hell. We do not have anybody on our team who is qualified or capable to even understand the render pipeline code. Okay, Linden Lab has only one, maybe two people that work for them that understand and are able to manipulate the render pipeline code. Linden Lab is working right now on fixing the performance issues that were accompanied with Mesh, and they're working at fixing the stability issues that come with Mesh and reliability that comes with Mesh. They're working on it. But they've only got like one or two people that can actually do it. So that stuff it's issues we've inherited. It's issues that come with Mesh, and they are being fixed. But we can't fix them. That's flying over our head like a 747. We don't have the knowledge to fix that. What was the second one?
Okay, the second one, and actually I've been getting a few people in the room who have been asking this, including Miles here. Um, As a second question, are there any plans to make a new viewer with an interface more like Phoenix? After looking at Firestorm and trying to make it look more like Phoenix, it still just felt clunky and confusing. Not to mention the lack of skinning options. Apparently, Narelle loves the metallic purple on Phoenix. Ooh, purple. Okay.
So, basically, the gist of that question is, do we have plans on making the Firestorm skin look more like V1? Well, that's what we're doing, and that's what we've been doing, and we're still working on it, and there's still more to do. So the answer is yes. However, there has been something now that's come to our knowledge, which is the Linden Lab FUI, which is called Flexible User Interface. And so that is affecting our ability to manipulate anything because we're not quite sure how we're going to be able to merge that into Firestorm. And so we're kind of on hold on interface stuff right now while we investigate and research what's going to have to be done in order to get that interface code into Firestorm, and then we'll continue on with what we had been doing, which was working on the interface. Firestorm's not done, folks. Firestorm's just beginning. And it may not be ready for you now. It's been ready for a lot of people, but that doesn't mean it's ready for you. We're hoping it will be. We're hoping that every update that we do with Firestorm, it's going to be getting closer and closer to being ready for as many people as we can possibly make it ready for. There are going to be people who refuse to use Firestorm and refuse to use any V1 or V2 viewer, no matter what. And I'm afraid when V1 goes out, then you're going to have to make a choice. You're going to have to decide to use a V2 viewer that's available or quit Second Life. What else have we got?
Okay. Chrome Runner has a couple. Well, he's at actually some complaints.
Complaints. I like complaints. Let's do complaints.
Okay. Complaint number one. In none of the Phoenix releases, I got music and or video to play, not to speak of voice. I'm guessing he's having music and video and voice problems.
It sounds like media problem.
Yeah.
Just reading on here. So that was the first complaint. The second one is...
Second one, I was reading about the bugs that have been fixed in the latest Firestorm release. Actually, all the bugs I suffered in the beta release are still there, and the rest got even worse. I can't really use Firestorm at its current state.
And what's the third?
Third is we had to wait quite a long time for the release of Firestorm, and now it's such a messy piece of software. Even the beta was better, and not even the new GUI of Linden Labs Viewer 3.2 made it in the new Firestorm. He does have a question at the end.
Okay, let me answer those complaints first, and then we'll get to his questions. So, music and video not working. That could be any number of things, and if you get a hold of support, they should be able to work that out with you. It works for the majority of people. We can't make a viewer that works for everybody. We've got probably about 450,000 people using one or the other viewer, and we do our best to try to make it work right for everyone, but that's just, it's implausible that we'll be able to make it work for everybody. But usually these type of issues can be worked out. See, he was reading about the bugs that have been fixed in the latest Firestorm release. Actually, all the bugs he suffered in the beta were still there. Look, we're not done. We're not done. We still have a lot of work to do. If you guys go to our JIRA and look at the Firestorm issue tracker, you're going to see that we've got thousands of things that we still have to do: bugs, features, improvements, changes, fixes. So, we're doing what we can, but we're a volunteer team, and most of us have real life jobs, and some of us actually have real lives. Not all of us, some of us do. And so we try to work on Firestorm or whatever viewer we're working on when we can. And so, we're not like Linden Lab, who gets paid, a healthy salary to be at work 8 hours a day and plug away at it for 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday. We don't have that luxury. It's actually pretty amazing that we've accomplished what we have accomplished, given the time that we have available to us to put into the viewer. So despite the fact that we have a lot of bugs, we've accomplished a ridiculous amount of ground. We've done so much in such a short period of time, with such little time that we actually have to dedicate to this project, that I'm flabbergasted that we've gotten to where we are. So let's see, we had his third complaint. We had to wait quite a long time for the release of Firestorm. Yeah, well, I just explained why. And now it's such a messy piece of software. Well, that's a matter of perspective and opinion, and I appreciate that opinion. We don't think it's a mess. We think it's a work in progress. And what was his question?
His question was, do you think you will have a Linux developer join your team, especially one for the popular Ubuntu?
We have several Linux developers on our team. We have Tech Wolfletindo, although I think he's Gentoo. We have Aaron Oberlander uses Linux, and I don't know what flavor of Linux, though. But again, if you know a developer who is Linux, Ubuntu, and knows how to develop the viewer, we'll be glad to bring more people on the team. Getting people to be willing to work on a project like this, volunteer, and still have users yelling at them and complaining all the time is not easy to do.
Okay. Siren Haven from the blog, and this will be the last one from the blog. Question, will there be any plans to allow creating, modifying outfits V1 style? I know a number of clothing creators that would switch to Firestorm but struggle with the messy V2 method. So they are hanging on to Phoenix. Is it practical? Is this a practical change that could be made, or is V2 style the only real option?
Oh, that's a can of worms. So basically what this user is saying is that one, edit appearance, and that edits your shape, it edits your clothing, it edits everything in one floater. Whereas with the Linden Lab V2, you've got a series of windows depending on if you're editing your outfit, your shape, and whatnot. And I don't like the V2 method. I'll be straight up and honest. I think it was a really big mistake by Linden Lab to separate that process. I've gotten used to it now. And it's, once you know how to use it, it's not that bad. I still don't like it. I still prefer the V1 method of appearance. As far as answering the question of whether it's a practical thing that we may be able to change, you know what, maybe when Firestorm is, to a point where we're comfortable with it and we feel it and the users feel, it's not even a matter of whether we think Firestorm is ready for you. It's a matter of whether you think Firestorm is ready for you, and we're not going to stop until you're thinking that Firestorm is ready for you. When we get to that point, and I'm convinced that we will, then we may consider looking into something like that. But it's a pretty severe modification to put into the viewer, and would probably create more bugs than it would be worth.
Okay. Now to questions from the room here.
Okay.
Kid Cyberstar says, Firestorm has been a great solution to Linden Lab's initial V2 viewer. The new Linden Lab viewer has made some great changes with their dockable text buttons. How feasible would it be to adapt this new layout bottom text buttons in a very Phoenix style layout.
So
Was the ultimate goal of Firestorm to use the snowstorm code to mimic the classic layout as best as possible?
um,
That's,
it's
I
about
guess, two
options.
questions.
For us, it's about options. So, first of all, the reason Firestorm went out, the official release that went out without that new UI, is because Linden Lab worked in secret on it, and they dumped it. They didn't even communicate it to us that this was being done. So we had no idea it was in the process. We can't just take something like that much code, especially interface code, and just port it into Firestorm. It's not going to work. We've made too many changes to Firestorm interface already. So there was no time for us to merge that code into Firestorm. That doesn't mean we don't intend to. I do want to give Linden Lab kudos. They did a good job, and I actually like what they've done with the dockable buttons and stuff, and I think pretty much everybody on the team agrees that Linden Lab's on the right path there. They've done a good job. The question is, it's not a matter of if we're going to do it. We are. We want to get that interface work put into Firestorm. It's a matter of when, and it's a matter of how difficult is that going to be for us, and how hard is it going to be for us to maintain it. So right now we're researching that code. It's not a little bit of code, folks. It's a ridiculous amount of change. And it undoes, like I said earlier, it undoes everything we've done to the Firestorm interface. It's about options, okay? We still want to be able to provide you the Phoenix login option. So you have the user interface that works similarly to Viewer 1 and Phoenix. We still want to be able to offer you the V2 option, and we still want to be able to offer you the hybrid option. We would like to be able to offer you a fourth login option, which is the FUI, which is what Linden Lab calls it, which gives you the buttons. Maybe we can incorporate the FUI into all of our login options and have the FUI mimic what we have now. So it'll actually be using FUI, but still looking like it does now. You'll be able to use it and move things around, though, differently that you can't do now. So yeah, we want to bring that into Firestorm, but we got to do some research. We got to plan out a strategy on how we're going to do it.
Okay. Ella Guru comes in, and she wants to know, will Firestorm be able to match the Linden's mesh updates? At the moment, I have to use Linden's to upload my mesh model because Firestorm bespoke physics is not working well enough.
Yeah, uploading mesh is because Linden Lab used some closed source code for mesh upload. So we had to, and Nick Dasman on our team did most of this work, but there's some other open source developers who worked on this as well, was basically reverse engineering mesh upload without knowing that Havoc code, without knowing what that closed source code is. So basically we were faced with, we have to figure out how this works without actually seeing any code. So it's not perfect, and it'll probably never be perfect. It's not going to be as good as Linden Lab's because Linden Lab didn't give us that code. That, by the way, is an example of what's to come with Viewer 1, where they're going to release features that they will not release the source code for, and therefore we can't, and no third-party viewer, no V1 viewer can put it into their V1 viewer. It's a matter of time.
Okay. Tallulah kind of continues the mesh option thing here. In the continuing development of Firestorm, will more of the Phoenix features be ported over, specifically the mesh's morph ability under Avatar?
Absolutely. And in fact, we were in the process of getting that in, but we had some bugs at the last minute with the Firestorm release, and we had to back it out. But yeah, we're not done. There's a lot of features, and they're minor features. Most of the stuff that's left that we haven't brought into Firestorm from Phoenix are minor in comparison. And I say minor by the amount of use that they actually get. But we intend over time to get as many of those features into Firestorm as we possibly can. But we have to prioritize. So what we're trying to do with Phoenix, okay, as an example, Phoenix, as most of you know, we inherited that from Emerald, and it was very unstable, and it had some code in there that wasn't very good, and so we spent the majority of our time with the Phoenix viewer stabilizing it. Okay, most of the work we did with Phoenix was fixing bugs, fixing stability issues and crashes, tracking these crashes, and basically unpleasant work. Fixing bugs is the most disliked job for a developer. Developers like to make features. With Phoenix, we spent the majority of our time stabilizing that viewer, and that's why you have Phoenix being as stable as it is. Firestorm, we've got a different set of problems. We're starting fresh, and we're starting with a viewer that's already kind of crashy. We're starting with a viewer that's fairly cutting-edge code, so we're pulling this code in, and it's not really well established yet, whereas Phoenix was Snow Globe and it had been around for years. Viewer 2 code and Viewer 3 code is new relatively, and so we do have stability issues. So with Firestorm, we're trying to fix bugs, we're trying to fix stability, we're trying to bring in features, we're trying to create new features, and we're trying to do all this whole variety of different things, so it's a little bit longer to do. And it's also important to note that we can't just take something from Phoenix, a feature, and just copy-paste it, and boom, we're done. Viewer 2 is a different code, and so we can take the idea from Phoenix, but we still have to write it from scratch when we put it into Firestorm.
Okay, and actually someone's continuing the mesh questions. This one's a interesting one. Stumbling Giles asks, wouldn't it be best if everyone just boycotted Mesh so that Linden Lab would give it up as a bad idea, then we could have our Phoenix viewer?
Mesh isn't... okay, so Linden Lab thought Mesh would be the V1 killer. It didn't turn out that way. Henry Beauchamp, God bless him, he's dedicated and he's the most persistent person I can think of, and he managed to get Mesh into V1. And Singularity managed it as well, so they deserve some credit there as well. And so Mesh turned out that Mesh wasn't going to be the feature that kills V1. Mesh is just an example, though. There's a lot of other features that Linden Lab wants to bring in that they won't make profit from so long as V1 viewers are out there. Basically, they have a choice. They can let Second Life and the viewer stagnate and not come up with new features, and then you can keep your V1 viewer because it won't make a difference. But if they do that, people are going to start to leave Second Life because it gets boring. There's nothing new. There's nothing to look forward to. So in order to progress, they have to develop new features. They have to improve the platform. They have to improve the services. And they can't do that with Viewer 1 being there. So boycotting Mesh is not going to do anything to save Viewer 1.
Okay. And at this point in time, and I know Jessica's been talking like crazy for the last hour, and I've been talking on and off. I think the both of us probably need a drink of water. Do me a favor, don't get up, run away virtually, but if you need to leave your desk to go potty or drink something or take the dog out or make sure the cat hasn't eaten the fish or, anything else like that.
In my case, I'm going to run out for a quick smoke.
Cigarettes,
so we're going to
light
take
them if you got them.
10-minute break?
Yeah, 10 minutes. So everybody...
Is that okay, folks? 10 minutes?
2:15. Be back here.
And Nigma, I'm sure, has lots of...
Real life interferes with things.
I'm going to... Queen Blue Star, can you pass that over to Nigma? Actually, Nigma, I'm going to send you an IM, and there's another question in here. And Queen, we'll get to that question, okay?
Okay.
Oh, and I just double-clicked teleport. I thought I turned that off.
You're doing it wrong, Jess.
I really... I love double-click teleport, and I hate it at the same time.
Actually, Queen, I received those those questions from you already, and I was just about maybe 10 minutes from getting to them.
Okay. Let's make sure Chantal is ready to start recording again. Chantal? We'll just wait for her to go, and then we'll kick back in again.
Okay.
Okay, we're recording.
Okay. Another question from Stumblin' Giles. And I promised I wasn't going to do two questions from one person right in a row, but he does bring a good point here. What is Linden Lab's response to those who are using portables that are 6+ years old to access SL and thus struggle with the new viewers and the new features like Sculpties, etc.? The old viewers are the only real answer I have seen for older computers to access Second Life.
That's a very good question. And it is something that concerns us, but it's another one of those things that's out of our hands. So I'm going to try to be unbiased and objectionable in my response to this. Technology changes, technology improves, and as technology moves forward, old technology gets left behind. I think it is extremely unfortunate that there are people in Second Life who have older systems that cannot run the mesh viewers. Even Phoenix with mesh, they can't run. And I feel terrible for you folks. And I know there's a lot of you out there. There's not nearly as many of you out there, though, as there are users who can use these new technologies and these new features and this new innovation. And we brought this up with Linden Lab at one of our meetings. When it became apparent to us, we found out that mesh was going to require SSC2 instruction set. And we brought up the fact that we have, at least ourselves, I know, we have a significant amount of users. And I say significant is around 5% to me. And we have probably about 5% of our user base that are on systems that can't support SSC2, and that's why we've gone out of our way to try to release Phoenix with those two options. That's become not feasible now with mesh. So we brought it up to Linden Lab. What about these people who are being left behind? And their unofficial response is we can't continue to innovate and improve if we continue to try to remain backwards compatible with old systems. And while I agree with them and I disagree with them, I agree with them because that's the reality of technology. And it's unfortunate, it's very unfortunate for you guys on older systems. So, you know, I agree with it because I understand it. I understand that Linden Lab can't continue to innovate. They can't continue to improve the platform and the services in Second Life. And if they can't continue to improve these services and the platform in Second Life, they can't remain profitable. They can't remain a viable business. And if they can't remain a viable business, then there will be no Second Life for anybody. So it's what's the less of the two evils? And unfortunately, folks with older computers, you're the less of the two evils, and you're going to be left having to save up and try to get a newer computer. Only 5%. We asked Linden Lab if they could look into some statistics to find out how many users were on systems that wouldn't be able to support mesh. And they came back to us with a result of around 2%, actually. I think it may be more around 10% or 5%, but inevitably, that's not a lot of people compared to the greater good of everybody else. So it boils down to that. No, Coco, I'm not saying Linden Lab lies. It was an estimate on their behalf, and because it's not an easy statistic that they can get. They said 2%. I'm thinking 5, somewhere around there. But it boils down to you guys are going to have to save up some money.
And if I can just, put in my 2 cents worth here, I understand times are hard and everything, and trust me, I've been in computers. My first greatest moment when having a computer was getting my very first hard drive. It was an MFM hard drive. It was 3 times bigger than a house brick, and it was a whole megabyte, and I was just skippy happy about it. But let me tell you, I actually beta tested Doom, the original Doom, on a computer, and you can't do, you know, Eve Online on that computer. You can't do Metal Gear 3 on that computer. You can't do WoW on that computer. There's a lot of things you can't do on that computer. I don't think you can even run YouTube on that computer. The whole point in the matter is that you kind of have to upgrade with the times. You
Well,
know,
Neil Ram says that the want of the many outweigh the needs of the few is such a bad stance to take. Perhaps it is. But is there a choice? If Linden Lab can't innovate and continue to innovate, then there's no second life for anybody.
hmm exactly. People would stop buying cars if they stopped innovating things. There would be a big, huge cloud of smog, and nobody would care out there. Uh, and fortunately, though, seatbelts came along, airbags came along, unleaded fuel came along, and hopefully the next step will be electric or something like that, and everything will be fine. Same thing with computers. I mean, how many of you have flat screen monitors? Probably most of you. Um, I only know very few people that still use CRTs, and that's just because, they're heavily into like really big time photography or are professional gamers that can't deal with the quote unquote screen lag time, which I could never understand. But anyways, on to next question.
Okay, next question.
Um, Big Daddy Acadia, oh, I'm gonna say that wrong. ACACIA. His question is, uh, yeah, I think you were just discussing this. It seems that the mesh version of both Phoenix and Firestorm use a lot of memory. Is this something to be addressed? Can it be addressed?
Linden Lab is looking into addressing that from my understanding. And in fact, from what I understand, at a point right now where they're focusing on bug fixes and performance improvements right now over features. And so, again, that's not something we can do. It's a little bit over our heads and above our capability. So we're counting on Linden Lab to do that work. And I do believe that I have faith in the Shining team. They've been working pretty hard, and they've been doing a very good job at much of what's been going on. And that's Chantal Linden, who's been working on that. And who was the other one? There's two of them.
Oh, Leslie was doing the Windows stuff.
Leslie Linden, right. So they are working on it, and kudos Linden Lab, good job.
Okay. Uh, Tarina Sewell. I have a question regarding Firestorm. Will the developers put in the ability to save outfits as copies, renaming in a folder, or will it continue to only save as linked?
Well, if you use the outfits folder, that its behavior is to use linked. You can always go back to the old method that a lot of people do, which is create a folder, give it a name, and copy clothing outfits into it. But the trouble is, if you have a clothing item that you want to add to it that's no copy, then you can't copy it. So you're going to have it in one folder or the other. That's the beauty of inventory links, is that you can have copies of no copy items almost, in that you can add it to a folder, and it just works. Well, it does make your inventory. Miles says, using the old system makes your inventory huge, and it does actually. But on the other hand, the links also account as inventory items, so that does also add to it. But the inventory link system is fantastic, and I have to again give Linden Lab kudos for working that out. It works really well, and it's a fantastic idea, and it was actually well implemented. So I think it's difficult for people to learn new systems and learn new things, and we're seeing that with Firestorm in many cases. A lot of people that are so used to Phoenix are having a hard time getting used to Firestorm. And the same goes with inventory links or anything new. There's a learning curve with everything. But in many cases, if you give it a little bit of time to deal with that learning curve, you're going to benefit and prosper in the end.
Okay. Nilram Ninetails asks, are labeled buttons coming to Firestorm? That is why I'm still on Phoenix, because Firestorm's buttons are not labeled.
Yeah, that's something that we're discussing as well, and that goes with the Linden Lab V1 work that they've done with their interface. Those of you who haven't tried it, basically, depending on where you... Their new skinning method is you can have buttons on the left side of your screen, the right side of the screen, or at the bottom. If you put them at the bottom, they can be turned into text labels. So one of the things that we're looking into is providing the ability to change them from icon to text independently. So if you want one button to be an icon, you want another button to be a text, we're going to see if we can do that. Yeah, we're hoping we can do it. I can't promise it. It depends. We're still doing research in how we can do that, but it's all about options.
Okay. Let's see.
Did you lose track?
No, I didn't lose track. I'm trying to, because when I sent out the big, huge message, I got a bunch of busy responses, so I'm trying to figure out which ones are busy responses and which ones are actually... Some people are really clever with their busy responses. Okay. I've... Systems CTAN asks, I have had a really hard time with my inventory not loading on Phoenix, and my BFF's inventory is like 54,000. It only loads
load
24,000. Yeah.
So I can explain why that is. First of all, for those
Oh,
of you that
hold
don't
on
know,
just a
BFF
second.
is best friend forever. Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
hold on just a second. Just some information here, guys, because this person, system says that she relogs and clears cache. Clearing cache can actually worsen your problem sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It's only good for some things. Don't always clear cache, because that can cause issues, especially if it's like, visual type stuff or even inventory type stuff. It can make things worse. So, sorry, go ahead.
So, there's a couple things happening for this person. First of all, they're on Phoenix or V1 Viewer, which does not use the new inventory fetching system. There is a new inventory fetching system that works in V2 viewers and including Firestorm. And the system is called AIS2. This basically sends your inventory in very large chunks. Boom, 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 you've got your inventory. Whereas Viewer 1 fetches it bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, and eventually the server gets tired of sending it, especially if you have a large inventory, and it effectively times out. So you never get a full inventory fetch. Now, I have 72,000 items in my inventory, and on Phoenix, I'm lucky to get 54K. On Firestorm, I get 72K every single time. If you clear your cache, you are also clearing your inventory. And that means that the server has to send you all of that inventory again, and you're guaranteed that if you have a large inventory and you're on Viewer 1, it's going to time out again, and you're not going to get a full inventory fetch. So clearing your cache is not helping your inventory problems. It's just actually exacerbating them and making them quite a bit worse. Don't clear your cache. Seriously. Don't clear your cache unless you have texture corruption, and you'll know when you have texture corruption because support will tell you you probably have texture corruption, you should clear your cache. Otherwise, don't clear your cache. Cache is there to perform a function, and it does it fairly efficiently. And clearing it all the time is just slowing you down. So inventory fetching on Viewer 1 has never been reliable. It works for some people it doesn't. It depends on a number of things. It depends on your bandwidth, how fast the server can send your inventory cache to you, and how fast you can receive that data. It's not actually a viewer problem. It is a communication between the server and your computer and the viewer. And Viewer 2 has a much more efficient method of fetching inventory. I might add, at some point, Linden Lab will turn off V1 inventory fetching, and that will break inventory for V1 viewers.
Ouch.
See, that's another thing that people don't understand, is that there's a lot of innovation in Viewer 2, and there's a lot of new protocols and systems of making things happen that are more efficient than they are in Viewer 1. And they're also less expensive for Linden Lab to maintain. But right now, Linden Lab is now managing two different protocols, one for V1 viewers and protocols for V2 viewers. And those protocols for V1 viewers, that's a load on the server, on their systems. And if they can eliminate that load, they save money. And the more money they save, the more profitable they can be. A marginally profitable business is not going to attract a lot of employment because they're not going places. And as an employee or potential employee, you want to apply for a job that at a company that's really successful and they're really going places, and they're going to be around for a long time. And if a company is only marginally profitable, they're not going to get these really good star developers. They're also not going to get a lot of investment. So, and the credit rating isn't as good. The better your credit rating is, the lower your interest rates are, so you can remain more profitable. So the more money Linden Lab can make, the better they can do. The less money they make, things start to go downhill, and eventually we lose Second Life.
Okay. With Robin Kerstrider, I don't know where Linden Lab ever came up with all these last names. With respect to in-world building and the built-in tools currently in Phoenix version 1185, will Firestorm fully support these various tools completely? Example, align prims, align textures, ruler, grid, etc. I thought they did.
It's already in Firestorm. It's been in Firestorm since, a while ago. I mean, those things are already, we focused, when it came to the features department of things to bring over from Phoenix, we started with the most popular things, and building tools was one of them. Those are all in Firestorm.
Okay. Zarek?
That's not in there. Sweet Monster, default building texture, we haven't done that yet. It is still on our list.
Okay.
Search by creator is something we plan to do as well. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Zarek Draconia asks, why not make a Linden Lab viewer that more people like? Not good for you guys working on Firestorm, etc., but would make sense for Linden Lab. And do you have a suggestion for people using computers that are older and do not handle V2 code? Oh, well, guess what? We already went through that.
The answer to the first question is we are. That's what Firestorm is. Firestorm is going to help get people off of V1, hopefully, and that will help Linden Lab become profitable or more profitable. I don't expect they're making a lot of money right now. So that will help Linden Lab become more profitable if we can get people onto Firestorm. But we can't get people onto Firestorm by saying, hey, you have to use Firestorm, because that's the wrong way to go about it. We're saying, try it. Give it a try. Take it for a spin. It's not good enough? Okay, next time we put out a release, give it a try. Take it for a spin. At some point, we're going to get to that point for you, and it's a spectrum. It's different for everybody. Everybody's tolerance for new things is different. But at some point, we're going to hit that point for you, and you're going to like it, and you're going to stay on it, and then we've succeeded for you. But we're still trying to succeed with everybody else. The only alternative that's going to remain useful in Second Life long term is going to be V2 based third-party viewers, and that's Firestorm. V1 viewers, Phoenix, long term they're just it's not feasible. As far as recommendations for people on older computers that can't use Viewer 2 or mesh-based viewers, I recommend you save your pennies. it sounds harsh, but that's the reality of it. Unless you want to go to a text-based viewer, and there are a few of those out there.
Okay. And this question seems to be coming up from like about, 15, 16 different people. You have a video out, I believe, that helps people using Firestorm make it look more like Phoenix, right? Or is
Yeah,
there some instructions?
That video is actually outdated now.
Oh,
We've done that for you. If you log into Firestorm and you use the Phoenix login option, all the work that I've given you in that video is already done for you. The presets are already set for the viewer to behave like viewer 1. For those of you on Phoenix, did you know that we have dialogues now in the top right-hand corner like they are in viewer 1? If you log in with the Phoenix option, that's the behavior you get. You basically, we've set settings, so we've customized the interface as much as we reasonably can in the time we've had to make it look and behave like viewer 1. And we've given you the Phoenix login option that sets the settings and options for how that interface behaves to mesh with Phoenix.
okay. Terry Cheney asks, isn't this an opportunity for the Phoenix Firestorm team? I think this is about look and feel, not code base. If Firestorm can look enough like Phoenix and provide the Phoenix feature, won't people be happy with that? Can't you do
Well, that's what we're
usability testings to see that Phoenix users need Firestorm to be comfortable with it?
That's what I've been preaching all night. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It may not be ready for you yet. It may not look enough like Phoenix. And I don't want to get your expectations too high. We're never going to be able to make it look exactly like Phoenix because it is not a V1 based viewer, and we simply cannot make the UI look and behave like viewer 1 when it's not viewer 1. It's just unreasonable to try that. And another point that I should make understood too is that the more we change, the harder it is for us to stay up to date with Linden Lab. So, for example, you take two documents, okay, and they're both exactly the same. And you take one document and you give one document to your friend, and you start making changes to your document, and your friend makes changes to his document, and then you try to merge those two documents together, and what you have is a big mess. That's what we have to do. Every time Linden Lab makes changes to their viewer and they update it, we have to merge their changes in with our changes. And as you can imagine, that's crazy amount of work. The more changes we make to things like the interface especially, the harder it is to merge and the longer it takes us. So we're trying to find a happy medium for everybody. We're trying to get it to look as close to Phoenix as we can without making it impossible for us to maintain it, if that makes sense.
Okay. And I'm going to throw this last question in by Terry real quick because I think this one question right here could probably spur its own entire conversation. But get ready to grab onto the third rail on this one. Is Linden Lab reneging on their open source commitment?
No. So here's the thing. Going back with the example I made earlier, imagine running a company where you have to depend on your competition. And I say that because Linden Lab considers third-party viewers to be competition. It's very unfortunate they feel that way because that's not the way it is in my opinion. So imagine trying to run a company where you have to depend on your competitors to adopt your work in order to remain profitable. Can you imagine that? Any company in their right mind would not put up with that for very long. Linden Lab does. They do because although we are their competitors, we do also help them, and open source developers in general help Linden Lab by committing code changes to their viewer. In our case, we do contribute work to Linden Lab, but we also keep a lot of people in Second Life on our two viewers for a long time. A lot of people spend a lot of time on between Phoenix and Firestorm, and in that way it helps Linden Lab as well. So Linden Lab is, I would say, probably, I don't know if it's the right term, but I'll say tolerating third-party viewers because they are helping Linden Lab to a certain degree. As far as deprecating viewer 1, is that breaking the open source commitment? I guess it depends on your point of view. I think if a business, if it gets to a point where you're going to go out of business because of it, you have to do what you have to do to stay in business. And if that means breaking the spirit of open source, then that may be what they have to do. But let's consider that Linden Lab are the ones that open source their code in the first place. And if it wasn't for Linden Lab going open source, there would be no Phoenix. There would be no Firestorm. There would be no Imprudence or Emergence or Cursum's Viewer or any other viewer for that matter. There would only be Linden Lab option. And at this point, that would be Viewer 2. So, or yeah, like Pookie says, or another grid. So I'm grateful that we still have open source.
Okay. This person has a question. It's more of a technical support question, and I'm going to tell them that they should probably go to technical support with this. But there's a statement in it that I want to get clear here. It says that I'm worried that one, it seems it is something else, or two, more likely that my issue is too obscure, infrequent for Linden Lab or Firestorm team to be concerned about. Trust me, if it's an issue and you put it in the JIRA or you bring it to the attention of the dev team, they're going to put effort into it. They are concerned about it. Don't ever think that your issue isn't concernable, because if everybody thinks that, then it won't get taken care of. If you come forward, then other people come forward, then more people come forward, and then they'll be able to get a general database on what the problem is. And don't be wallflowers on those types of things.
There are a lot of people who feel that, that have an issue that we don't have the solution for, and they're hoping that we'll have it fixed. We'll make a commit and say we're going to work on it and try to fix it, and then we'll push out a release, and that problem's not fixed yet. Folks who have that problem, I understand that you're not the only person who has that issue or has an issue like it in the way that, you're stuck with it. Not too many other people have it. Lots of people have issues that only affect them, and for us so we have to prioritize. We have thousands of problems. The viewer itself, we inherited a viewer with thousands of problems. So we try to get to things by priority. And just because it's not been fixed in the next release, and it may not have been fixed in the following release, it doesn't mean we're ignoring it. It just means that, we're pushing our way through, and we're going to get to it at some point. And it's not that we don't care about you, and it's not that we don't think that your problem is a priority, or that we think your problem isn't important. It's just that we're limited to what we can actually do. We only have so many resources, we only have so many people, and we've only got so much time, and we just can't get to everything.
Okay. Marcy Wilson asks, as a designer, the feature in Phoenix Parents Make outfit is not in Firestorm. Will that feature ever be in Firestorm?
Is that in the Linden viewer? If you're in the audience, you can answer that. Is that something that's in the Linden viewer? Make outfit. As far as I know, that should be in Firestorm. Is that new? Oh, in Phoenix. Oh,
is it in Phoenix?
Phoenix uses a kind of a hybrid version of inventory links. It doesn't work like it does in Viewer 2. I actually like the way the outfits work, especially with inventory links in Phoenix, better than I like how it works in Firestorm. It's a lot more simpler. But some people prefer the other way around. Everybody's different, and it's all about options. But no, if it's not in Phoenix now, it probably won't be, because, again, we're pulling our focus away from Phoenix. We're going to keep it alive, but we're, as far as new features and things like that they have to be going into Firestorm.
Okay. Wench Lisa asks, is there acceptable reason that Firestorm can't look like Phoenix Viewer? One. I believe we've gone over that.
Yeah,
It
we have
can look
answered
like
that,
it.
and I mean it
Yeah.
does to a lot of people who take. We've had there's an interesting statistic that we've learned is that people who spend 3 days or more on Firestorm, and I don't mean an hour here and then an hour in a week and an hour later. People who spend 3 days in a row using Firestorm generally remain on Firestorm and refuse to ever go back to Phoenix. And not all of you. I'm saying a large majority of our users who spend 3 days or more will remain on Firestorm. Firestorm, and this is coming, these are people who hated Viewer 2, hated Firestorm at first, but once they give it a little bit of time and a bit of a chance to get the idea of where things are, they actually really like it and prefer it. And so our support people, for example, we had to force them to use Firestorm so that we could support Firestorm. Now our support people don't want to use Phoenix. And so many of you noticed in the blog post that I had said that our support would be limited in what we can do with supporting Phoenix. I didn't say we will no longer support Phoenix. I said it's just getting difficult for us to support it because I can't, just like I can't tell you that you have to use Firestorm, I can't go and tell our support people that you have to use Phoenix. They're doing this on a volunteer basis, and they do it because they enjoy it. And if I take that enjoyability out of their experience, they're not going to want to stay on support, and then they won't be there to help you. So most of our support team are using Firestorm now, and when they're loaded up on Firestorm, for me, ask me a Phoenix question, and I'm lost. And I used Phoenix for years and years and years. That feature set, that interface. I've been in SL for over 5 years now. And now I couldn't tell you where to find anything on that viewer because I use Firestorm all the time. And so it's very difficult for us to provide support when you ask, where is this feature on Phoenix? And if I'm on Firestorm, I don't know it off the top of my head. And I'm on Firestorm, so I can't find it from Firestorm. I have to load Phoenix to try to find it for you. And that's the reality of our support. So we're not removing support for Phoenix. It's just getting more difficult for us to support it. As far as why we can't make it look like Phoenix, well, we've kind of covered that. And we've done, I think, a remarkable job at taking a V2 viewer and making it as close to V1 as it is now.
So now, are more people using Phoenix or Firestorm, or do you guys have those numbers yet?
What's that?
Are more people using Phoenix or Firestorm, or do you guys have those numbers yet?
We still have more users on Phoenix.
Is it even close?
It's getting closer. We have a lot of people on Firestorm. I'm going to estimate we probably have about 80K. We'll find out on Monday with our statistics. And that's a lot of people. But Phoenix is Phoenix is a force to reckon with. Phoenix has a staggering number of people on it, and that's one of the reasons we're not just giving up on it. We're going to keep it alive because we know there's still a lot of people on it. Again, we're not telling you have to use Firestorm. Our goal is to make Firestorm good enough that you want to use Firestorm. But you're not going to know if you want to use it unless you try it, and so that's why we ask you if you could at least give it a try. Every time we put out a release, just give it a try. Spend a day on it. Just get used to it a little bit. And you never know, you just might like it and find that it's even better than Phoenix.
Okay. Now this is an interesting question. Why the need to rename common features from the old names of the same features in the new viewer?
Good question. So again, Firestorm is not based on Viewer 1, and we didn't rename things. Linden Lab did. Linden Lab made Viewer 2.0. Linden Lab made the decision that they should give things different names, and we do not necessarily agree with that. However, renaming things to the way they were in Viewer 1 will be just as confusing and also become a maintenance nightmare for us. Again, like I was saying earlier about merging those two documents together, the more we change, the harder it is for us to maintain it, the harder it is for us to keep getting updates out to you in a timely fashion. So we tried to find a happy medium. The menus at the top, Linden Lab has the first menu called Me. We think that was kind of what? So we called it Avatar, and we put avatar-related stuff in that menu. So we have renamed things a little bit to try to make them make sense to you if you're coming over from Phoenix. But changing the menu system, I actually brought up the idea of offering V1 users, or offering you the option to have a V1 menu at the top. And I was just about kicked out of the team for that by support, because that would just make everything even more confusing for everybody. It would become impossible to support. It would slow down our ability to maintain and merge and stay up to date with Linden Lab. So we've tried to find a happy medium somewhere in between for you, as best as we can. But again, we didn't choose those names. We didn't choose to change the menu system at the top. That was done for us by Linden Lab with Viewer 2.0, which is what Firestorm is based on.
Okay. And now, this is an interesting question. Is there a possibility of a Firestorm viewer without mesh options?
Probably not. We talked about doing that, but the trouble is, where would that end? So mesh is just one example, okay? In say a few months' time, and I don't know, but we'll say in a few months' time, Linden Lab will have another feature. So, and that feature may cause problems. So should we have then a mesh Firestorm, a viewer with mesh and this new feature, and then a viewer without that feature? Eventually, we're breaking Second Life, and again, it becomes the same dilemma Linden Lab has with Viewer 1, where they're pushing out features that aren't getting adopted, they're making investments that aren't returning their income or their expenses, and they're not getting a profit from it. And then Linden Lab goes belly up, and then we're all homeless, right? So long term, it wouldn't make sense, so we're not going to do it short term either. I'm sorry for those of you who can't run the mesh viewer.
Okay. And I'm not absolutely sure you got to this, and I'm not actually sure you can answer this, but is there a proposed date for Viewer 1 going offline?
There isn't. Initially, when we were told, we asked, can you tell us when? And it was suggested that by the end of this year. That has obviously not happened. So the estimates that they give us are actually guesstimates. It's a guess. Even Linden Lab doesn't know when they're going to do it. And it's not going to happen all at once, okay? It's going to be basically, as they turn off services, V1 gets broken. And it'll be up to V1 developers to fix them and get V1 back up again. And then they're going to turn off another service, and that's going to break V1, and it's going to be up to a V1 developer to fix that and get another release out. And then they're going to add a new feature that V1 can't use. And so it's going to be up to a developer to try to get that feature into Viewer 1. And then they'll release something else, and they'll turn something else off. And they're not necessarily doing it intentionally to break Viewer 1. They're doing it to be profitable, right? It's about profit. Linden Lab is a business, and they have to be profitable or there's no Second Life. So it's not that they're going to go out and just push a switch. They are going to push a switch that's going to turn off inventory fetching on V1 viewers, for example. And they're going to do that because it's no longer it becomes no longer viable for them to continue providing that protocol, providing that service. Providing that service is costing them money. At some point, they're going to turn off profiles for V1 viewers, V1 profiles. At some point, they're going to turn off. At some point, they're going to fix rendering. Believe it or not, bake fail is something that they're going to look at fixing. And in fact, they're working on right now, I believe, as we understand. But that fix is not just a matter of switching a few things around. That's changing everything in the render pipeline, which again, as I said, is something that most people don't understand. There are very few developers open source or Linden Lab developers who actually understand that stuff. And what that's going to do is take rendering out of the viewer and do rendering server side. That is going to break V1 viewers. It's going to fix Second Life, right? It's innovation, it's improvement, and they have to continue to be able to improve and innovate. But if they do this work, they're going to have to turn off the old system in order to actually get a return on the money that they've spent. Otherwise, they're spending that return, or any return they get, on maintaining an old protocol, you see? So it's not that they want to kill V1, it's that they have to in order to innovate, in order to continue, in order to improve. As for a date, no date. I ask almost every week if there's anything new in that regard. And, you know, I learn things here and there, but there's no actual date set.
Okay. Hold on a second here. All right. I'm going to ask this question again, but it has an interesting second question to this that I think maybe we should take a look at. Coco Kale says that PHFS, Phoenix Firestorm devs have always given the people what they want. Why will they abandon Phoenix when the people want it so bad? Now, I know you've answered that question. This next question, though, is very interesting. Is Linden Lab manipulating the Phoenix Firestorm devs to help adopt V2?
That's a very good question. So I'll answer both questions in turn. First of all, like I said earlier with V1, we do listen to you, and that is how we got to where we are, and that is how we became, you know, the most popular third-party viewer project in Second Life, and we have two really fantastic viewers, Phoenix and Firestorm. It's not our choice. It's not our choice to kill V1. It's not our choice to kill Phoenix. It's going to happen anyways. And so it's not that we're not listening to you. It's that it's a matter of viability. What makes sense? Does it make sense to do a kitchen renovation in a house that's about to be torn down? Or does it make more sense to continue to try to fix a new house up for you that you'll like, you know, when the time comes? It's just a matter of sensibility. It's a matter of priority. We're not ignoring you. We know that you like Phoenix. We know that we have a staggering number of people on Phoenix, and therefore we're continuing to keep it going as long as it can. But again, it is not our choice. If it was our choice, V1 would stay forever. But c'est la vie. As for Linden Lab manipulating us, let's say we negotiate. You know, what we do is to benefit the users. Okay, so our fundamental mandate is to improve the user experience, and if Linden Lab asks us to do something and we feel it's going to improve the user experience to do it, then we're going to do it. If Linden Lab asks us to do something and we feel it's going to take away from the user experience, we're not going to do it. And then we'll negotiate and find a happy medium, just like we try to find with you. Because if we can't improve the user experience for you, there is no point for us to exist. And we will just walk away. So as long as we feel that we're improving the user experience, we're going to continue to do that. Whether Linden Lab is manipulating us or not is irrelevant, providing we're still improving the experience. Whether or not, I mean, the fact is, Viewer 1 is going to die. Linden Lab is not manipulating us to build V2 or to build Firestorm. We're building Firestorm because we know V1 is going to die. And Firestorm will be the only viable alternative for you other than the Linden Viewer. And if you want to go to the Linden Viewer, go for it. We feel that Firestorm is improving the user experience for a lot of people already, and we hope that it will be at a state when V1 is dead that it will improve the experience for everybody else. It may not be ready for all of you yet, and for many of you, you're going to say, it sucks, it's ruining my experience. And I'm going to say, give us a chance, give us some time, we're not done yet.
Okay. Da, 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 da. Topper Brenham. Would it be possible for your team to put together a compatibility tab slash label list note card? I mean a list of labels, tab names, headings, etc., which will show Phoenix users the equivalent but renamed or relocated tabs in Firestorm.
Have
Ooh,
you guys seen the
good.
wiki?
Yeah,
Ed,
there's
you
a
got the
wiki
link
on
to
it.
the wiki? Um,
There's
I
an
gotta
app for
give
that.
kudos to our support team. Our support team, Coco, maybe it isn't reinventing the wheel. Maybe it is. It's not our choice, okay? What I'm saying is that it's not our choice. We're not killing V1. Linden Lab is, we're trying to find you an alternative. It's not our choice. So we got a wiki that has, I mean, our support team does a hell of a lot more than just help people in group chat. Our support team handles hundreds of support tickets every week. Our support team handles JIRAs on a regular basis and basically triages them and brings them to attention to our developers if they're really important. Our support team work on a wiki on a regular basis, daily, in fact, to try to provide you a resource that has all the answers that you can possibly need, all the learning material you could possibly need. And it's been focused on Firestorm, and if you go there, I swear to gosh, you're going to find everything you could ever ask for regarding Firestorm. And this is, again, our effort to improve your experience, because we realize that when you come onto Firestorm for the first time, it's all Greek, and you don't know where anything is. So we make this huge effort to bring you a wiki and bring information to your fingertips, to provide support through support tickets if you can't get in Second Life, or provide support in groups, or provide support in IMs. It's been very depressing reading blog comments in the last couple of weeks, because I see so many people saying that we're being hard butts. I can't swear in here, so I'll say hard butts. And it's very difficult for support to not lose their temper sometimes when you're being yelled at for trying to help somebody. And we have this thing that we tell support people on a regular basis, and it's something that we always tell them when they first join us as a support team worker, is that don't burn out. If you're not in the right frame of mind to provide support, don't. It's very easy, though, for support to lose track of when they're not in the right frame of mind. And support do get grumpy. So do we, so do I. And sometimes people will be in the support group and they'll be mouthy or whatever, and the support person will lose it a little bit on them, and or come across rude. And I apologize if that happens. In fact, we just had a support meeting. Ed just hosted a support meeting, and they had a long discussion about that. And we're hoping that will die down a little bit. And I know it also happens with developers. But we're human too. And you know, if we lash out on you, it's not because we don't care.
Okay. And our next question is from Pookie Amsterdam. Yes, that Pookie. Um, when viewer one goes, how many people do you think will migrate to Linden Lab Viewer versus Firestorm? And also, how many people do you think will actually just leave SL?
First of all, I have no doubt that there's going to be a percentage of people who will leave Second Life, even if Firestorm is as good as it'll ever be. I don't think it'll be as high a percentage as those who say they'll want to leave Second Life think it's going to be. I've been, and I've brought this up to Linden Lab too. You know, I've said, you know, do you realize that when you kill viewer one or break it to the point where, you know, open source devs can't continue to maintain it and can't keep it going, you're going to lose people. And the response was, and this is unfortunately true, the response was, in people always swear they're going to quit Second Life when something comes around that they don't like. But most people don't. And that is the truth. I've sworn I would leave Second Life several times for things. Linden Lab was going to block megaprims years ago. This is before most of your time. Linden Lab was going to hike tiers, and I was a region owner. I was a landowner at the time. But there will be people that will leave, but I don't think it'll be a huge number of people, especially if they have an alternative like Firestorm. I expect some will accept the Linden Lab viewer, and Linden Lab is in a good direction right now with their viewer, with the new FUI stuff they're doing. Coco, I don't know this. This is my opinion. So I think some people will turn to the Linden viewer. I think a lot of people will turn to the Firestorm viewer, and I think maybe 20% will leave. That's my guess. Of course, I don't know, because I'm not psychic.
Okay, and again, I'll remind people, and some of you who are IMing me, that I'm a host. Please don't cuss at me. It will earn you trouble. Okay. Okay, this is a good question. I know people with very slow internet connection. Would they do better with the some older version of Phoenix or the newer Firestorm or what?
Having problems with Phoenix 1600?
It doesn't say.
Okay,
I don't think it's a problem. I think they're asking you. I think what they're doing is they're asking you, what do you think what do you recommend for people who have a slower internet connection? Do you recommend Phoenix or Firestorm?
First of all, with a low internet connection, it's not going to matter too much what viewer you're on. And it depends on how slow your connection is. I mean, if you're really slow, there's no point trying to get in Second Life. You're going to have packet loss. Second of all, you have this really cool feature called a bandwidth option. And depending on which viewer you're on, it's in a different location. And someone from support can tell you where it is, depending on the viewer you're using, whether it's Phoenix or Firestorm. And if you're on a slower connection, lower your bandwidth. But I will tell you that low bandwidth is going to give you some problems, and it doesn't matter what viewer you're using. Second Life uses a lot of bandwidth. It needs a good internet connection. Running off of wireless, for example, some people have a really good internet speed, and they're using wireless, and they've got all these problems, and it's to do with just being wireless. So basically, you can look at packet loss. If you go to help about, if it's on Phoenix, you'll see help about Phoenix and help about Firestorm. And in that list is a thing called packet loss. And if you have anything over 2 or 3%, you're having packet loss, try turning down your bandwidth slider. And that might improve that. Support can help you a lot better than I can, though. That's really a question that can go out to support, and they can give you a hand with that. Also, hi, Cersei.
Okay. Oh, here we go. This is a good one. The Wiki Shackleton would like to know if you're planning on working on the Shadows code more to make it more stable in Firestorm.
No, because again, the shadow code is, first of all, shadow code. Linden Lab deserves all the credit for the shadow code. They did an amazing job. If you're on Firestorm and you're using shadows, they did an amazing job with shadows. And it's not even that resource hungry. I mean, it still is, but it's not overly. But that's all Linden code, and nothing to do with us, because it is, again, it's render pipeline, and there are only a few people that exist in Second Life or at Linden Lab that actually understand that stuff. So that's not something we would even consider trying to play with. It's just, it's over our head like a 747.
Okay. You still have the questions from White Queen?
From Queen?
Yeah.
I do.
Shall
Queen
we
wanted
answer
to know,
those now?
Yeah. Why can't Linden
Okay.
Lab have its own graphics card developer for sale? That is have its own Oh, it's have its own graphic card developed for sale. That's an income stream. That's an interesting idea. Except the Linden Lab doesn't do hardware. So there are hardware companies and there are software companies. Very seldom are there hardware and software companies because they're two totally different things. Hardware requires manufacturing, whereas software requires developing. And I think that would be an expense Linden Lab wouldn't be willing to risk investing. Another question she had was, why don't Linden Lab develop a iPad specifically and solely to run Second Life on as a further income stream? Again, that comes down to hardware development, and hardware development is a much bigger overhead, or at least a much bigger startup cost than a software company, and that's because a hardware company has to buy materials and machinery to create things. And Linden Lab's just not there. That's just not something I don't think they'd ever be interested in. Their software, and they'll probably always be developed. But there's interesting ideas, though. That's an interesting idea. That'd be something to bring up with Linden Lab, but I don't think they're kind of like in a position where we are. Our hands are full. I mean, we're taxed with the amount of things we have to do and the amount of resources we have. We're pretty taxed, and I think Linden Lab is pretty much the same way. They're doing as much as they can with what they have right now. And they can hire more people, but the more people you hire, the more you affect your profit margin. So Linden Lab is trying to do more with less, and we're trying to do more with just what we have, which is less.
Okay, are you done on those?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Cameron Lane asks, will Sculpties continue to coexist side by side with mesh objects for some time? Do you foresee?
I can't see Linden Lab breaking Sculpties. That would be like breaking, like banning megaprims like they wanted to do many years ago. That would just break too much content. There's too much existing content out there made of Sculpties, and in fact, I'll give you my personal opinion. I still think, and not to say anything bad about mesh. I've seen mesh outfits and mesh creations, and mesh is fantastic. It's really nice. It's really good, but it's expensive. Prim-wise, it is expensive, and you can make a mesh airplane that has the equivalent of 400 prims, or you could do the same thing with 20 sculpts. People are still going to use sculpts for a lot of things, I think, unless Linden Lab changes that formula they use to calculate how much prim equivalent a mesh object is. So, simple answer: Linden Lab will put themselves out of business if they break Sculpties.
Yes, I know way too many weapons developers, ship developers, plane developers,
Yeah.
and everything else that just, yeah, it would kill them. Okay, okay, Zmara, Lundquist asks, this is more a Linden Lab question. Okay, here we go. As SL photographer, is Linden Lab working on issues to fix the stitching problem with pics not forming correctly when taking depth of field pictures on higher than screen resolutions?
I couldn't tell you. Many of you may not know, I'm actually a photographer in real life, and the depth of field option that Linden Lab made is absolutely fabulous, even though the integers that they use for f-stop and whatnot are totally unrealistic. I love depth of field, but I have no idea if they're actually going to be working on that. Again, they're in the same boat as we are, priorities. What's more important, fix a crash or fix a stitching problem?
Okay, and I'm going to add.
If that's not filed on a JIRA, file a JIRA with Linden Lab, actually, there's probably, I'm sure, already a JIRA on it, and just follow that JIRA, and that'll give you
Yeah,
an
just
idea.
yeah, go to the Linden Lab JIRA. and search through and see if you can find it. And if you don't, put one in. The worst that happens is they delete yours and give you the actual address for the other one in an email. Um, yeah, I'm going to ask two questions additionally to this. Uh, do you think that there's any intentions on them fixing the alpha texture issue, where one alpha texture bleeds through on another?
Yeah, that's how long has that been around? I've been in Excel since sometime in '06, and that has always been a bug. And they've tried to fix it, I think, many times, and they fix it one way, and then it's broken in some other way, and they fix it that way, and they break it in some other way. It's annoying. Maybe that'll get fixed with the new texture rendering system that they're coming up with. I don't know, but they've not expressed that they're looking at it.
Okay, and I am hearing rumblings about them, especially from Ed, who seems to be the cheerleader on this, that they're actually going to start working on the bake fail and the rendering stuff.
The bake fail is our single biggest, most common support issue that we deal with on a daily basis, and I imagine it is Linden Labs as well. There's a lot of different things causing bake fail, but Linden started the ball, and nobody crap on Linden because he started the ball on fixing bake fail, and it's rolling. So.
Okay. Maria asks, I wear a shadow now for crowded places, but this big egg I see on me and the fact that I can't move is also of lag or my preference issues.
That's something to bring up with support. What was her name again?
Maria Lag. Marialag.
We got tons of
Obviously,
support
she's
people
got
here,
a sense
so
of humor.
Can poke her and help her out.
Yeah, that was a curious thing, and I believe Tinder's had this issue where we've logged on after a crash and there's like a rock attached to our hand. Is that like?
Okay, let me explain the rock.
Okay. There's an explanation for it. I can't wait for this.
There's an explanation for the rock. Firestorm rocks you. That's the explanation. So with Phoenix, we import the bridge with Phoenix because Phoenix has an importer. It's got a whole whack of code there that lets you import and export things. And that is, by the way, on the list of things to pull into Firestorm, but it's not yet in Firestorm, and there's a lot of work to do. But with Phoenix, the way the bridge is created is that in the installation, in the install folder of your Phoenix viewer, you have a file in there, and basically it's an exported bridge. And what happens is that when you log in for the first time in this viewer, it does a check to see if you have the bridge, and if you don't, it uses that file and imports it. That's why you have to log into a res-enabled region in order for the bridge to actually be created while you're on the Phoenix viewer. Because we don't have the import-export code on the Firestorm viewer, we had to find an alternative, another way of getting a bridge created. And we looked at half a dozen different possible ways of doing that. And we came to the conclusion that the most reliable way was to use something that you already have in your inventory. Now, what's in your inventory that everybody has? Library stuff. And library stuff, some of it is full perm, including a rock. And so what we ended up doing with importing the bridge for Firestorm is when you first log on to Firestorm, it takes the bridge or the rock from your library and wears it. Then it renames it, then it resizes it and retextures it, and then turns it into a little tiny thing that you can't actually see. It's an Eric Linden rock, so we can thank Eric. He's not in the Second Life anymore, but sometimes it's a very complicated process to get that bridge created, get a script injected into that bridge, and make sure that it's the right script, and make sure that nothing is manipulated or broken the bridge, added anything else to it that it shouldn't be added there. So there's quite a bit of checks and whatnot, and it doesn't always work right, especially if you're having connection problems, especially if you're in the process of loading your inventory, which is usually the case. And that can cause interruptions, and sometimes the bridge doesn't complete that process, and you end up with a rock. If it means anything, I've been rocked by Firestorm many times myself. It's a little bit embarrassing.
Okay, and I think you answered this question already, but I'm gonna shoot it out there again anyways. Will the option to use our own texture on Resing Basic Prims be coming to Firestorm?
Yeah, that was asked earlier, and yes, that's on our list of things to do.
Okay.
How many questions we got left? We still got a lot?
Oh,
Okay,
we
let's
got a
push
lot.
through 'em.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out again which ones are away messages and which ones aren't. I'm browsing the JIRA as we speak. This is Sharp Claws. But I have a small question about the bug in the quick preference menu. It seems the time of day slider reverts any chosen win light preset to default. I've also noticed that the new environment sky settings does not recognize said chosen win light automatically either.
That sounds like you need to file a JIRA or get in touch with support. That's something they can probably help you out with. We do have bugs. I haven't heard of that bug, but I'd suggest getting a hold of someone in support, and they can probably work that out. Linden Realms, by the way, noticed somebody mentioned Linden Realms. I went and checked that out today. I'm not big on these kind of things, but I have to, again, give Linden Lab kudos. I don't want to sound like I'm like a Linden Lab fangirl or anything, but I have to give Linden Lab kudos. It's a fine example of how to create an immersive game within Second Life. Very good job. If you guys haven't checked out Linden Realms, really, check it out. It's very cool.
Yes. And let's see here. This is a good question, and this is something that I've always wanted to ask too. What exactly does the LSL Bridge do?
LSL Bridge does a whole bunch of stuff. So there's the LSL Bridge, in layman's terms, allows the viewer to interact with in-world content, and allows in-world content to interact with the viewer. So Bridge gives you a number of things. Oh, you know what? Ed Merriman just posted a wiki page. Did we mention the wiki today? Have a look at that, Firestorm Bridge. Firestorm Bridge even gives you a flight assist built in. So check it out. Bridge gives you all kinds of added functionality that the viewer itself can't do by itself.
Now, the flight assist, that helps you fly above the clouds without needing a flight feather?
That lets you continue to fly, yeah. It basically is a flight feather built into the bridge. And you can turn it off in preferences.
Now, if you don't wear the LSL Bridge, it won't make you crash, or it won't,
Nope.
it won't kill anything.
You can disable the LSL Bridge in preferences as well. You could disable it, and you'll check the hashtag with Firestorm in front of it, and check in there and see if you have the bridge worn. The viewer should actually detach it, but if it doesn't, you can detach it. And it's just that you'll lose some functionality. Some things like double-click teleporting in regions that have set landing points. You won't be able to teleport around, things like that.
Oh yeah, those are always fun. You double-click teleport, and you're dragged all the way through there, through buildings, bushes, trees, people. Yeah.
We've actually got ideas for to continue to refine and improve and innovate the bridge, to give even more interaction between in-world and the viewer itself. But again, it's a work in progress. More ideas than time, Seriously. Yeah.
Okay, Whisper asks, they would like to know when the preprocessor will be available in Firestorm. I have no idea what the preprocessor is.
In fact, we have Chalizieo, who just this second went offline. She's the one who has done the LSL preprocessor for Viewer 2 code, and she has it in her viewer called the NACL viewer, NACL. It's a private viewer, really. There's a lot of people that have been asking for it. It's a very complicated chunk of code, and she's given us a patch which doesn't perfectly fit into our viewer, but we're in the process of getting it in. So we're hoping that we will get that in within the next release, maybe, if not the one after that. I know that for scripters, if you don't know what LSL preprocessor is, don't worry about it. If you do, you desperately want it, and we recognize those scripters that want it, and we're going to try to get it in soon.
Okay. Now, some of the buttons have been taken off, and some of the additional options in the upper menus have been taken off. Things like the fly button or the mouse look in view, stuff like that. Are those things going to be put back one by one, or are those just things that are just not going to come back?
Some of those things are things that we just haven't gotten to yet. Some of them we may not get to, at least not for a little while. I understand that there's a lot of people miss the fly button. But we've added some already. For example, fly cam. A lot of people were complaining that there was no fly cam, no indicator button that told you that you were in fly cam mode. And anybody that uses that will notice in the latest release of Firestorm, we have that now. So it's all a matter of getting it in there. It's mostly on our to-do list.
Okay, and Chantal Harvey asks,
Hey, Chantal.
Hi, Chantal. Is there any chance that the view angle option in Firestorm will be changed from just being a slider to a slider with numbers to it so that filmers can use it more exact? Thanks.
That is a very interesting feature request. That Chantal, actually, Whirly, if you're here, can you get with Chantal after? Because I don't know if Chantal has done JIRAs, and that's a very good idea for a feature request, and we'll be sure to try to get that in for you.
Okay, Sereth Hafner. Wow, Linden Labs really went out on a branch with some of these last names. When can we expect a 3.2 interface in Firestorm?
Again, we're in a research process right now, because that FUI stuff that Linden Lab did, that's a huge amount of work. And it really, if we merge that into Firestorm as it is, it's just going to completely break the viewer horribly. So we have to research, investigate, determine how best to get that work into the viewer. I wouldn't expect it in the next maintenance release that we're pushing out Firestorm. It probably, hopefully, we'll have some of that, if not all of it, in the next big release. So we intend to do a maintenance release within the next couple of weeks, probably just early in the new year, and then we'll be another month or two, and we'll have another big release out. And maybe we can get that in. But again, that's not a simple job. That's a ridiculous amount of work, so it's going to take some time.
Okay. And just to clarify something, and I heard this directly from a Linden Lab didn't make Viewer 2. They had another company make it, and some of the people that were involved in the development had never actually set foot in Second Life. So, needless to say, it's a hard, long road, but at some point in time, the Linden Lab, Phoenix, and the other people who are developing Viewer 2 viewers will slowly, get this beast running correctly in some fashion or manner. I also don't think that it's a good idea that people, blame the individual viewer developers, because that's just not going to work. Oh, this is a good question. Will we ever be able to drag folders intact into prims again?
Good question. Again, was that ever possible?
Yeah, it was, but you didn't. I don't think it ever put the folder in it. It just
No, you
it
can't
would
put
just.
folders into prims.
You can't put folders into prims. I think it just emptied the
Oh,
contents of the
Tallulah
folder
never said
into it.
again. So, not
Oh,
unless
okay.
Linden Lab does something about that. That's not something I think we could do. Believe there would be some server side that might be done there. I'm not sure.
Okay. And um, Volmar asks, what happened to Metamix TV Phoenix Firestorm office hours,
Oh,
and will they again return to their every other week like before?
absolutely. So I needed a break. I'm sorry, but I needed a break. So did the Metamix TV folks. In fact, Flimsy, who does the filming, had some computer problems, and so we weren't able to do one of the office hours. And then something came up the next one, and then we just sort of decided, you know what, let's take December off and take a break, and we'll get back to things in January. So yeah, we're good. We'll be back into the office hours again. But we just sort of all needed a little bit of a break.
Okay. Does Firestorm have the feature to hide your own look at yet? Actually, yes, I believe it does. I can answer that
It
because
does, yeah.
I have that. Lily Densmith. Any idea on if Firestorm will be able to save Sky presets to note cards so that they can be shared on more than one computer?
Right. So we were in the process of doing that when we found out that Linden Lab was doing or getting prepared to release Region Midnight, and so we didn't want to do anything that might interfere with that or break our own stuff. So I mean, if we do the note card stuff, get it coded in, and then find out later that Region Midnight breaks it, let's just hold off and put it on the shelf for a little bit. So that is still on our to-do list. I can't give you an ETA on it though. Because there may be some things coming in the new year that will still also affect that. So it's only right now on the to-do list. It's kind of like a wait and see at the moment.
Okay, MS Tillash, or Miss Tillash, asks, what's the difference between the Firestorm recommended download versus the alternative?
Oh, fun. So, any of you that remember Linden Lab's Mesh release or the Firestorm Mesh beta will have heard that it had all kinds of problems. And it did, because Mesh came out with a whole load of problems. So Linden Lab decided to open a new category of bugs, and they called it shining. It's .sh on the Linden JIRA. And what SH is shining. What shining is basically all these graphical bugs that came out with Mesh. And Linden Lab has Ryan Tai and I forgot her name again. The other Linden, what was her name? Shelley? Leslie Linden are working on that shining fixes. Now we found that those shining fixes fix a lot of problems for some people, but create problems for other people. So what we did is we gave you two Firestorm choices. We gave you the Shining as the default, which is 3.2.2. That's Firestorm with Linden Lab's Shining bug fixes to fix the mesh-related issues. And we also offered you a 3.2.1, which is Firestorm with all the same features. It's exactly the same, except we did not include the Shining fixes because, like I say, we found in our QA process, in our beta testing, that Shining fixed a lot of problems for some people, but actually created new problems for others. And so we had hoped that for those who have more problems with the shining, they can go down to the 3.2.1 that doesn't have the shining, and maybe it'll work for them. And that seems to have been a good decision on our end. The next Firestorm probably won't have 2 releases. It'll just be the Shining stuff, because Linden Lab is still working on Shining. We wanted to get Firestorm out, but we didn't want to wait another 2 months for Linden Lab to finish fixing all the Shining issues. So, Shining's not completely done yet. We're hoping by the time we get the next maintenance release out, they'll have more of these Shining fixes done, and less problems that are created by these fixes, if you understand what I mean. So that's the only difference. As far as functionality, as far as the features set and everything, it's exactly the same.
Okay, Kid Cyberstar asks, why does Firestorm insist on creating features that offer enhancements, and he puts that in quotes, not designed in the Linden Lab viewer? One good example of this is Fly Override in the advanced menu. Actually, the Linden Lab viewer does give that too. You can use
that
Fly
is
Override
in
in
the
that.
viewer as well.
If he says, he continues, if a region is set to no fly, why should Firestorm users be able to override this? An important feature for game creators to ensure that everyone has the same experience. This causes us as game developers to set extra security in scripts and object detection to combat cheaters in the game environment.
So,
yeah.
First I'll start out by answering that by saying I understand what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from as a region or property owner who does not want people flying. That was one of the quote-unquote questionable or controversial features. I don't think there's a third-party viewer in SL that doesn't have Fly Override prominently displayed in their preferences. Phoenix does. And we can't really remove it from Phoenix without causing a whole lot of, crap. But when it came to Firestorm, we're kind of starting fresh and we want to do it right. And there's a lot of people who use Fly Override for legitimate and useful use cases for good reasons, not for cheating. And there's also people who use it to cheat and fly around in role-play sims where you're not supposed to fly and things like that. So we again came to a compromise, and by the way, the Linden Lab viewer does allow Fly Override as well. We came to a compromise. We're not going to predominantly place it in preferences, but we're not going to try to hide it either. So we put it in the advanced menu, and the advanced menu is not open by default. You have to make an effort to open it, and then you have to make an effort to go find it. And to even further that to your side of the argument, we also made it so that it doesn't remain on through each session. So if I turn on Fly Override now and relog, it's off again, and I have to go in and re-enable advanced and go and find it. So what we did was we tried to find a common ground. There's always some area that's gray that everybody can sort of reluctantly agree on, and we tried to find that area with Fly Override.
Okay, Nilram Ninetails again. Okay, I always go to a JIRA and vote or open one, even had links. I click to view JIRA. Once there, it's confusing on what needs to be done, what actual issues there are, or what actual issues are. It's not clear to the non-tech people.
So I think Ed and support leads were talking about possibly doing a class on how to use JIRA and how to file a JIRA. Ed, I'm not sure if anything ever came of that. Was that still on the planning books?
We are looking into it.
Okay, so that's one of the classes that the support initiative is looking at doing and helping you with. And Ed, if you can just post the link to the class schedule, Ed's going to give the link there, and I just say every week just check out that link and see if you see anything there. There's also going to be notices put out to our main support group anytime there's a class prior to the class. And if you see one that's about JIRA, go to it. The classes are actually a lot of fun. Even I learned stuff. And yeah, that would be a very good class.
Okay, and just an additional, actually, Rockcliffe will be running classes here. I believe 10 of your guys' classes, correct? And another speaking event. Am I right on that, or
Yep.
Ed,
To start
Jessica?
with, maybe.
Yeah, Ed is, I understand, organizing stuff with Rockcliffe University here to have classes here periodically. So Ed actually does. I shouldn't just say Ed. We got Letty. We got a whole bunch of our support people who are doing classes now. We don't just do them in one place. If you have a say a role play sim where you have a community of people and you'd like to have a class held in your community, you can go to Ed and organize a class just for you, just for your community, and he'll come to your region and do that class for you. And Ed is arranging to do classes here as well. So Support is really doing a big initiative there in trying to help people.
Okay. The question is asked, Topper Brenham asks, could the team put a decline option for money transfers? Too many money dumping scams out there now. I'm not exactly sure what he means. Are you talking objects or?
Because there is a decline in the menu.
Yeah, when you res an object, it pops down a thing that asks if you want to do that or not. I don't know. Is Topper even still here?
Oh, there's Topper.
Yeah, there's Topper.
When you get those, and I agree, there are too many of those scams, and they actually make me very angry. They make me angry because people fall for them, and that's really unfortunate. But yeah, it pops up, and you can decline it as long as you know to decline it. There's a lot of newbies that get hit with that scam because they don't know. Okay, go ahead and explain.
He's gonna write out an explanation here.
Nigma, if you want to ask the next question, and then we'll go back to Toppers once Toppers posted it.
Rebecca Huffnug. God. How can users contribute and support their favorite viewers other than using it, like a list of Linden Lab JIRAs we can vote for or something?
Come to our classes. The more you know. The best way to help us is to help those around you, because our effort is improving the user experience. And if you can help your friends, you've helped us improve their experience. If we can teach you how to do certain things and how to fix things, we have troubleshooting classes. We got all these different classes. Come to the classes. You can learn stuff, and then you'll actually be able to help your friends. And in doing so, you help us. Tell your friends about the classes. Try to bring your friends to the classes. The more people know and understand how to fix things and how to use things, the better their experience is in Second Life. And seeing as that's our mandate and our number one goal, if you can help us improve that experience, then you're helping us. Solange, that's probably not the best, yeah.
Okay, I'm guessing we haven't gotten his question
No,
fully
we'll
out
go to the
yet.
next. We're still waiting for Topper.
Let me see here. Will the closer linking of the M place have the effect on Firestorm? Is it going to be a mega as it sounds? I have no idea what that. Oh, marketplace. Okay.
I'm not quite sure. I think I know what you mean, Tallulah. So Linden Lab is coming out with this thing that you can actually link your inventory to the marketplace. And being Firestorm, we will be able to adopt that feature instantly, because as soon as we update to Linden Lab's code, we have it. And so it absolutely will be in Firestorm, depending on when they actually release it and when it's stable. Direct delivery.
Okay.
Right, what Tech said. Okay, Toppers asked, griefers have dumped largish amounts of money on avatars. I know 3 friends. And really, where are these griefers? I'm going to go hang out there. And even when you return the money, Linden Lab has suspended their account. Sometimes we can't return. Oh, yeah.
Deletes the account. Good
Nothing
question.
we can do about that. So you can buy Lindens on eBay, and you can buy Linden dollars a bunch of different places. But you can only legally buy Lindens from Linden Lab. And if you want to help people, tell them that. So what people are doing when they do that is they've bought Lindens from eBay for cheap or next to nothing and dump them on somebody's account, and that account gets banned for having them. And that's a good way of banning people or getting people banned. It's pretty evil and underhanded. And yes, like Surzy said, there are some approved sellers, but I would suggest telling people decline money, return it if somebody gives it to you, unless it's somebody you know and trust. But yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. That's a Linden thing.
Okay. Megan Fenstocker asks, is there any time frame on when there will be changes to things such as group notifications to make them easier to see? The current black box with tiny gray text is extremely difficult to read, even on 24-inch flat screen. Ooh,
So we have.
I'm jealous.
We have, yeah, no kidding. We have. That's a work in progress. For those of you who have followed Firestorm development and our progress, it started out with Linden chiclets and things on the right, and it was very easy to miss. And then we changed it to look more like a V1 notification or notice, but it's still, the color wasn't quite the same. We've gradually been trying to improve it, and it's getting there. We're not done yet, so I would say yes. Don't go ahead and hold your breath. At some point, we'll continue to refine that.
Okay, from Rocky Constantine. I am on Firestorm. Are there certain settings that will not stick after I crash, i.e. change of tag color? And when I returned certain crash, it was the color I had before. Yeah.
Yeah, so a crash, when you make a change to your preferences or a change to anything, it isn't actually saved yet. It doesn't actually get saved until you log out. The logout process is where the viewer looks at everything that's changed and saves that. If you crash, it doesn't get a chance to do that. And that's the same across the board for any viewer. And there's no real safe way of making that any different than how it is. So the answer to that would be no. If you crash and you've made settings changes and you crash, you've lost them. The best, safest way to do it is if you make settings changes, relog. And then you log back in and you know that they're saved.
Okay. Our last question that I've received.
Really?
And our number one question asker, Kid Cyberstar, would like to know, I heard some rumors of Phoenix Firestorm support sim for people to go to. Is this true? And if so, what's the ETA on this?
Oh, this guy's on the ball.
Are you sure he's not one of the alts of one of the developers?
Well, it might be. I'm presuming that region is still closed to the public right now. I hope.
Yes.
So it is okay. So I'm going to tell you all to open up World Map. Type in Phoenix Firestorm, and you're going to see a region. There is somebody on the region right now. You're going to see a region called Phoenix Firestorm Support. That is a support initiative, and it is in the process of being created. We purchased it 2 months ago when they were offering free setup. And we're paying a regular fee for it. We don't need donations. We make enough to cover it with our AdSense that we have on the website with our advertisements. It's a support initiative. It is not a hangout. Okay, it's going to be for bringing new people into Second Life. from our website. We're going to have a registration API for it, and we'll bring people in. It's going to have support for all 9 of our languages, and it will also be an area that if you're having problems, you can teleport there, and there will be people to help you. It is being designed as a much better help island or orientation island than Linden Lab ever offered. Basically, there's going to be a course that people follow. They learn to move and they learn to open boxes and things like that. And
so it's going to be kind of like Orientation Island.
It's an orientation island, yeah. And again, it's not going to be a hangout. There were a lot of fears of, some of you may remember, Emerald had Emerald Point, which was a sandbox that rented out parcels. This is completely nonprofit. We're not renting out anything. It is purely a support initiative. Don't expect the developers to be there very often, if at all. And in fact, we're going to be hiring, or recruiting, I should say, other people to try to populate it as helpers. It's geared, Xmera, it's geared towards new people. I'm sure that we'll have people who have some experience but still have a question, and they can go there and hopefully get it answered. But it's a basic, it's going to be basic stuff. You'll get better, more advanced help from our support team. So again, it's a support initiative for new people coming into Second Life. We want to bring people into Second Life on our viewer and start out with a fantastic experience, and we think we can do that. So yeah, Kid is on the ball. And was that really the last question?
That was really the last question.
Wow.
I mean, I'm actually, vapid here.
Wow. Seriously, what was yours? You didn't ask it to the right person. You could ask Nigma. Go ahead.
Yeah, shoot me the question.
Where did the name Firestorm come from? Good question. So after we got Phoenix off the ground, we sat down and kind of like did a little think tank and tried to think of a name for this V2-based viewer of ours. And Phoenix is related to fire, and we kind of came up with, well, Phoenix Firestorm. And we kind of all agreed that it sounded like a good name, and we called it that. We've subsequently been criticized for the name because for some people, Firestorm is referring to World War II, which is absolutely not what it was about. After the Phoenix comes the Firestorm from the Phoenix, and that's kind of where the name came from.
Okay, and I just got shot an anonymous question, the first one
boy.
of the evening.
Oh dear.
The only one, apparently. Anonymous would like to know if we could have a quote-unquote Phoenix Mesh viewer tag.
No. I'm going to say no because... Actually, how can I answer that? Let's just put that on the shelf for now, because there may be some changes coming to viewer tags that we have no control over. Okay. So I can't answer that. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the new year.
Okay, and I'm like getting like one or two shot more in. Neil Ram Ninetails asks, I keep my graphics settings low to reduce rendering and lag. Why does Mesh require raising graphics settings that cause user lag? And is this an issue with Firestorm as well?
That's an issue with any Mesh viewer. It's Mesh comes with a performance hit. Mesh is rendering some pretty intense objects, and requires a certain level of graphics, and but it's not something that we can do. Again, Linden Lab is aware of the performance hit from Mesh. They are very well aware of the crash issues that they're having and that we are having. LL Image is one of them. I'm sure most of you have seen examples or people complaining of that crash, and they're in the process of fixing these things. So Ryan Linden and them get kudos to them and applauds and everything, and they're the ones that are going to save the day, I hope.
Okay, and Miles asks, would it be possible to see a Phoenix 2 using FUI coding?
No,
I think,
that's gonna be
yeah,
Firestorm. We'll have that in
yeah, it's going to
Firestorm.
be
But
Firestorm.
again, viewer one is, it's not our choice, and I hope that's the last question because supper's
Yeah,
like ready and I'm starving. But
yeah, that's
I
I'm
just want
gonna
to
I'm gonna
reiterate.
end it there.
I just want to reiterate. It's not our choice to kill viewer one, and it's not our option, and it's out of our control. And it is inevitable. It's inevitable because economically, Linden Lab can't remain profitable without killing viewer one in one way or another. So don't blame us. Don't hate on us. We're just focusing on Firestorm to try to get a house ready for you for when that day comes, and it'll be good enough for you. And we feel that that is our best way of improving your experience right now. That's the most viable way for us to do that.
Since we're done,
And there's a lot of people that weren't here today. Obviously, there's a large amount of people in Second Life, and I'm sure a lot of them didn't come. I was hoping a lot of the angry people would come, and maybe some of you are angry. I hope that I made some sense to you today. I would ask, though, that those of you who have been here and that I have made sense to you, and that you can try to pass that on to your friends and pass it around.